kind of like, what would you say are like the key personality traits and skills that someone would need to be able to be successful in that role?
Adaptability. You have to be able to adapt. I would say, especially because the environment is completely different to the West. Like Arab culture generally is like, oh, it will happen. They're a lot more laid back. And obviously, when you come from a society which is very fast paced, it can be difficult to transition.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Slay with Shay channel. I'm here with my lovely friend Samina, or Mina as I like to call her, and I'm back again with another career plug series. So as you guys know, I've been doing I've been doing a new series where I'm interviewing loads of successful Black professionals in their field and finding out a bit more about what they do, what their day-to-day activities are like, and really just as a way of trying to encourage people who want to potentially move into different sectors to find out exactly how it is. And the lovely Samina here, she is a teacher in Dubai. She actually moved to the UAE about 5 years ago.
Well, I was in Saudi 6 years ago. So it's Saudi first for 3 years.
Oh gosh, yeah, okay. Well, we'll get into all of that. But yeah, I thought it would be good to bring her on to talk about her experience because I know loads of people are considering doing similar moves. So yeah, I'll get straight into it. So like, what is your job title and how long have you been doing it for?
Okay, so currently I am a business teacher and I've been a business teacher for the last 3 years.
Okay, so what was you doing before that?
I was a CELTA English language teacher.
Okay.
So as an English language teacher or instructor, and then I transitioned over to teaching business in the UAE.
Okay, cool. All right. So you went from Saudi to the UAE?
Yeah.
Cool. And so what was that transition like? Like coming from London, like what sort of made you decide like, okay, I'm going to go and move to Saudi as well? Like, yeah, like what sparked that?
I think really there was an opportunity that came. The salary or like the salary amount was quite attractive, obviously, as you know. And I just wanted to experience living abroad and what that would look like. And obviously I wanted a change. So I just wanted, it was straight out of uni. I don't know if you remember, I was 24, finished, I was a late bloomer, by the way. I finished uni at 24 and then I was like, you know what, let me just do this CELTA course and go abroad and see what I can experience whilst being abroad.
Okay.
And I've been there ever since.
Cool. So like, so you said you went to uni, you finished uni at 24. Yeah. Do you feel like going to uni made an impact on you being able to pursue that opportunity, or would it not have made a difference, like if you went uni or not?
Definitely had to have gone uni in order to get the job that I got. I don't think, I think going to uni helped me with my options. So it gave me more options. Do you get what I mean? So I could have gone into accountancy at the time because I just graduated with that. But then I think being able to have that degree and then go later on into teaching business, which is what I do now. And obviously since then I've done my master's in education. Having gone to uni has scoped my career path since then, if that makes sense.
Cool. It's good to know because I feel like with some things, whether you go to uni or not, it's like you can kind of pivot into it. But it's good to know that actually going to uni actually made an impact and actually like made a difference in that journey. So like, so what do you feel like are like if somebody wanted to decide today, because I hear a lot of people talking about it, a lot of people say that they want to like go to Dubai and teach and stuff, and I think sometimes they make it sound easier than it is. So what is like the process if I decided I wanted to go to Dubai tomorrow?
Well, right now they're changing the policy, so they're doing a teacher licensing program. So similar to the teacher licensing out in the UK, NQT. I'd always say for people that have maybe masters in education or have done a degree in education, so like your undergrad in education study or PGCE, those are people that are a lot easier to get the job. You can still go straight out of university now, but then for 6 months you would have to do the teacher training program, which they're introducing. So they're having
so there's like a new training program now.
There's a teacher training program for new fresh graduates. So 21-year-old teachers are going, or 21-year-old graduates are going to the UAE. They're giving them a salary packet, which is a lot lower than, say, like a person who has got the degrees and the qualification, but it's still 3 times the amount we get paid here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're gonna get onto all of that in a minute. So like, what somebody that's starting out wanting to go abroad, like, what type of what's like an entry level salary for a teaching role in the UAE?
Okay, so at the moment, entry level salary I would say is about 16,000 dirham to 19,000 dirham, which equates to, right now it's about 4.85. Let's just say 5, but it's more than that. So it'd be 16,000 to 5, or 3,000, just over £3,000 a month.
Okay.
Okay.
So as an entry level person. That's a lot for an entry level
know.
person.
But then you have to weigh up the cost of living.
Oh, okay, yeah. So that's actually what I was going to ask. Like, so is that something people should kind of be aware of? Because I think 100%. People do really glamorize going out to Dubai and living out there. But should people really be thinking about how much? Because everyone talks about tax-free money, and I got gassed off it at one point. So it's like, with that money, how does it equate to?
Depending on there's a lot of people that I know that have managed to save huge amounts of money,
right,
and actually make a lot of money. But then you have to be conscious and cautious of what you spend your money on. So it's like when you live in London, you can imagine when you see the people, the tourists come into London and stay in London, that's the mindset you have when you go to Dubai, even if you are working there.
Yeah. So
you're just out living your best life. And I think cost of living generally is the same as living out in London. So even though the salary is quite high, you do find that you end up spending more or less the same amount. So for me, I wouldn't sign a 16,000 dirham contract.
Right.
Do you get what I mean? Because I know how much it costs to live.
Right.
But if you go out there on the first time basis and you're very conscious with how you spend your money, then you'd be able to.
Then you'd be fine.
Yeah.
You just have to have like good money management and not allow that lifestyle to kind of suck you in. So your money just
starts going everywhere.
Okay, cool. So like, do you feel like is it predominantly like men or women in your field?
I would say it's a mixture. Like there is to be honest, for the expat community, because obviously again there's a lot of Brits out there within Dubai, within different fields. So even though I'm only talking in terms of, I work for a government school, there are people that work for private schooling who have different salary packages and then covering houses. And there are people that work in different firms, like law firms, accountants, whatever. But there's a huge expat community of both men and females, and very small community. So once you're there, you're bound to know it and see everyone, basically.
Okay, that's good though. I think because I was going to say that, how did you feel when you first went out there? Was it like lonely? But it sounds like there's loads of other people who are in similar boats.
I think it was easy. I don't know. I think Saudi was lonely.
Really?
But luckily I went with people, a friend I knew. But I think in Dubai, I was completely by myself, so I had to make friends by myself, which you find within sort of like, so the way that the schooling system works is that everybody works in different government schools, but we're put into blocks of areas. So like, as you can imagine, London has Southall, Lewisham, whatever. So it's very similar to that. All the schools within Lewisham, all the business teachers would meet up and have meetings. And then that's how I started to get to know people. And it was quite easy to make friends, really. So I didn't feel lonely. I miss home, obviously, but I didn't feel alone.
That's good. That's good. And what would you say are like the key personality traits and skills that someone would need to be able to be successful in that role?
Adaptability. You have to be able to adapt. I would say, especially because the environment is completely different to the West. Like the Arab culture generally is like, oh, it will happen. They're a lot more laid back. And obviously when you come from a society which is very fast paced, it can be difficult to transition into sort of more relaxed mindset. To be honest, patience.
Sorry guys.
Patience, I would say. There's also, I mean, I'm going off topic now, but talking about what I did in my master's, I would say it's important to have intercultural communicative skills. So basically being aware of different cultures. I think there are a lot of teachers that I've met and a lot of people within the Middle East who aren't aware of other cultures and how they operate.
Okay.
So you have to have a good understanding of culture within yourself, even your own culture, and how your culture might impact on others, especially if you're working as a teacher, because you are teaching students that are from another country.
Right. That's so good to know, actually. And what is it like culturally? Because I think there's a lot of preconceptions about Dubai, like it being super strict. You can't do. But I mean, I've only been there on holiday a few times, and I can't say I felt that. I felt free there. Not that I was moving mad anyway.
Holiday people.
I enjoyed it, to be honest. I thought it was fine, but you always hear, I thought it was fun, but you often hear people make it seem like it was super cautious, super this. Like, is it really like that?
It's not. I mean, I was gonna say it's not that deep, but it isn't that big of a deal. What I will say is that as a teacher, yes, as you would in any other like country in the world, if you're a teacher and you work in a school in Lewisham, you're not gonna go to Lewisham High Street or Lewisham's market with a spliff in your hand, whatever. You're going to carry yourself as a professional. So the reality is, yes, within the areas that I teach, I have to carry myself a certain way, because if my they live there. If my students see me, obviously they're coming from a completely conservative culture, and when you're in schools, the only biggest issue is like for women especially is the way that we dress.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, so you have to make sure you're not wearing tight clothes, whatever. But outside of work, in Dubai as the city itself, you're fine, you can do what you want.
Right.
But just be conscious if you're going to the malls where your students may be, then be more conservative, and that's it.
What about Saudi? Was that quite different? Was that a lot more stricter?
Yeah, because Saudi, I mean, now is very different to what it was when I was there. But when I was there, I remember I had to wear a abaya.
Really?
When I first got there, I mean, generally the law was an abaya. You have to wear, like, for those who don't know, abaya is like the dress thing that you cover. But I had to wear the abaya. I had to wear a headscarf. It had to be black.
And it's so hot out there as well.
By the third year, and I worked in 3 different cities. So I worked in Riyadh, the capital first. Then I worked in Dammam, which was a lot more freer, by the sea, across the way from Bahrain. So I was out every weekend going over to Bahrain to the cinemas, because obviously when I was there, Saudi didn't have a cinema.
Oh wow.
Free mixing wasn't necessarily fully allowed, but we could go to restaurants and things like that. But the last year I was in a city called Al Jawf, which was very secluded up by the mountains, and there I had to wear a niqab, like I had to cover my face.
Wow.
Yeah. But that was more so because everybody in the city covered their face.
Right. Okay.
And that was a very completely different experience. But at the same time, out of all my experience, I think I connected with my students more in the more secluded area.
Really?
Yeah, because I was a bit more down to earth. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So, in your experience, like, do you feel like it was quite multicultural? Did you see a lot of black people out there? Do you see a lot of black people out there?
There are a lot of black people, especially in Dubai. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I've really got to know people within different fields now. So I know people that work in PR. I know people that work in social media, marketing. People that work in law, and they're all black.
Okay.
Within the sort of teaching field, yes. I mean, it is a bit of a mix. There are black people there, 100%. A lot of my friends are all black, but it's a bit of a, you just have to kind of take it with a pinch of salt, really. Cultural differences.
I know what you mean. So in terms of like progression then, is there like standard kind of steps of progression for your role, or is it a thing of people tend to go out there, they teach for some time, or like you're doing your masters, for example, kind of get all of the educational skills that you want, and then do you then just come back here and actually teach here?
Yes. Okay. So I think there are routes to progression, but I don't see, for me personally, I don't see it as a longevity. Like, it's not a long-term plan.
Right.
A lot of people are there for a period of time, whether it is to buy a house out here, to build a business back home, where whatever it is, people all have a reason why they're there, or sometimes it's just a process of transitioning. This is something to do in the meantime. There are ways in which you can progress within the organisations or within the company, but at the same time, you have to understand the sort of politics within the country and what the country aims to achieve by sort of 2030 or by 2021, which I think is going back to 2030, whereas they want more Emiratis in those positions that you're in.
Right.
So in essence, it is go there for an experience, do what it is that you need to gain and get from that experience, and then
go
build.
And build elsewhere.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, how does the the whole tax thing work then? Everyone always says tax free. So what does?
There's no tax.
There's no tax.
There's no tax.
So then how does that come, like when you now want to come back here with that money, do you then have to be taxed on that money?
No.
Okay.
So once you are outside of the tax year, then you're not liable to pay tax here.
Wow.
But obviously at the same time, you've got to be cautious of how you do it. So you should be paying your student loan. Student loan can contact you and say, hey. So the
same way they would be now anyway. But you have to proactively pay them.
Yeah, if you want. Basically, the way it works is that what they do is they send you your salary certificate from the schools or the government. They divide it up with your allowance, which is your living cost, which tends to always be higher than your actual base salary.
Right.
So if you was to go off based on your base salary, you'd only technically be earning about 1,200, 1,300 a month.
Oh, okay.
It's your allowances which push it up to £3,000-4,000 a month. So you could get taxed on or have to pay NI or whatever based off of your base salary, but not off of your.
Got it.
Do you get what I mean?
Okay.
You have to know how to do it basically.
Okay. No, that makes sense. And so, do you feel like you've made any mistakes along your journey of transitioning to teaching abroad? And if you have, like, what sort of advice would you give to someone that's looking to go down a similar path to you in terms of how they can avoid that?
I mean, I've definitely made a lot of mistakes. I'm not gonna lie.
We all have.
All the time. I mean, I've been out there for 6 years, and every year it's always been like I'm coming back. One thing I will say is that have a plan. Like, if it is, because I always say these kinds of jobs are good experience, good way to kind of gauge the world.
Yeah.
And see it at a different angle. But if you are say a real teacher or somebody that has a PhD here, then make sure that you're not out there too long, because then your experience becomes null and void.
Right, okay.
Because of the system is completely different. Do you get what I mean?
Okay.
So have a plan. If you're there, be there for a period of 2 to 3 years. If it is that you want to save money, make sure you save, and you invest that in yourself. But basically, don't get lost in the sauce.
Okay. No, that's really good advice. And like, are there any sort of tips or advice that you'd give to somebody that's newly embarking on a similar path to you, or let's say fresh out of uni students sort of considering your journey? Like, what sort of advice would you give? Like, what would you have liked to have heard at the time when you made that transition?
Don't do it because it's easy. Okay. Make sure that if you're doing it because that's a desire of yours. Do you get what I mean? Try to do the research beforehand. So research what it is that you're going into, what's the kind of environment. I know I've had literally hundreds of people message me on LinkedIn because they see I'm a teacher in Dubai, and they send me CVs, they send me questions, they ask me. But at the same time, I feel I always respond to them, because had I been in that position, I would have asked. Had I known, I'd ask a lot more questions. Because it is still going to be a transition, and you know why you're going out there. Yeah. Do you get what I mean? At least gain something from it. If it is that you're going out there, you want to pay for your masters, do it.
No, that's such good advice. Such good advice. Well, thank you, Samina. Thanks so much for coming on my channel. Samina, I've known her since I was,
I don't know, it's like
16.
Yes.
And we're going to be 31 this year. So yeah, you guys do the maths. But it's been a really long time. But yeah, but thank you so much for like all the wisdom and stuff you've shared. I think people would find it really insightful, especially for people who potentially are considering a similar path, or even in general, if you're just interested in that sector or in that field. I think it's been super useful. But yeah, thank you again, and thank you guys for watching. If you have questions for Samina or anything like related to teaching in Dubai or in Saudi, drop your comments below and I will reach out to her and ask her, because I won't obviously have the answers. So yeah, but just drop your comments and let me know what you think of this video, and make sure you stay tuned for the next episode of the Career Plug series. So yeah, until the next video, guys.